Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of OneOfUs.SHOW right here on OneOfUs.net. This is of course our swanky interview series. We're talking to people with interesting passions and interesting professions, and all the better when those two things align. I am your host Brian Salisbury, and I am joined today by Mr. Zach Martin. Now, I'm excited to talk to Zach because, as anyone who has followed me for any length of time knows, I am a bit manic about my poster collecting. I have pretty much choked the walls of my house with everything Mondo has put out. But today, I'm excited to talk to somebody on the other side of this fence, which is to say a poster artist, and that is exactly who Mr. Zach Martin is. So, Zach, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, Zach, we're going to talk about a number of different things today, including how you got into this, what your favorite type of poster is to do. But I think right off the bat, we need to talk about something really exciting that happened to you recently, and I will let you tell this story.
Oh, okay. Well, I work for a pretty big my day job besides doing the artwork on my own. I work for a fairly large comic and game store here in Austin, and we had George Takei in store to do a signing with us. And so I was commissioned first by my workplace to do. I do all the graphic design. I'm an in-house artist for this store, so I do all.
You can go ahead and say the name. Okay. I have no problem throwing them a free plug. They're a great store.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so I work for Dragons there, comics and fantasy, and I'm the in-house graphic designer. I do the web work and graphic design there. So obviously, it was my job to make an announcement poster for us having him in the event. I don't know. It just kind of. I'm a Shepard Fairey fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course a George Takei fan.
Sure.
And so when they said we were going to have George Takei in, and we've got several members of our crew who are part of the LGBT community, and we're a safe zone for all walks of life, it just for some reason instantly clicked to do this. I had this vision of George Takei in that classic. This is not my political stance one way or another. I really don't lean either direction or any direction, but the classic Shepard Fairey Obama poster,
sure,
that said hope on the bottom. It was
right.
white and blue. So
instantly iconic image.
Yeah, exactly. And so I did, 15 minutes of research on the interwebs to make sure that nothing like that was already, because I don't want to do something that's already been done.
And that image especially has been taken off in so many different ways. You don't want to end up accidentally doing a takeoff that's already been taken off.
Exactly. So I did a little bit of hunting and pecking on Google image search, and I thought, I'll have to think of something else because George Takei is pretty high profile, and that's a pretty well-known image, so I'm sure I'm not the first person to think of this. And apparently I was, which worked out great because I got to do the original thing I wanted to do. So I did our announcement poster was George Takei in that classic style that Shepard Fairey made so bold and well known, and everybody knows that image. And it says "Oh my," which is his catchphrase.
Certainly has become his catchphrase.
As the president of the internet. So that was our poster. So I made that. I found a reference photo. It is one that he owns. He gave us the okay to use his likeness in any advertising we did for the event. We had to okay it. So I made this poster. Took me 3 or 4 days to refine. Phase after phase. Oh, I just bumped the mic.
That's okay.
So I got the poster done. We had to send it off to his people to get okayed. The next day, his agent said we showed it to George and Brad, his husband. They absolutely love it. They said, okay, please use this for your advertising campaign for the store. So we started putting it up. Pretty early on, people were asking for prints of it. We weren't selling anything like that. We just made them for the advertisements. We ended up making stickers and buttons for the event that everybody got to take home.
Sure. And I heard that people were kind of creating their own in-routes to getting a copy of this as well.
Yeah, definitely. People were stealing, so basically I did this image and then I made infographic versions with the date and time and all that. It was definitely more cluttered, but it had all the info about the event on it.
Sure.
people were stealing those out of like the bathrooms and stuff when the day of the event came. It was quite strange. I've done a lot of work, just kind of meeting people here and there, or a friend of a friend needs something small done, and I've done just a lot of low key freelance work, and so this is kind of a big deal.
Sure. It's a bizarre sort of compliment that people are stealing your artwork out of bathrooms. Yeah,
exactly. So we had to end up taking all the posters down because we didn't want people stealing any more of the artwork.
Sure.
And we're not, I never set out to make this a thing that we were going to produce and sell. So George Takei is there at the signing the day of, and I got him to sign a copy of the print for me. So I got to meet him. I told him I was the artist. He absolutely loved the piece. We made a 24 by 36 to give to him, and he ended up showing that off on his Facebook page and his Twitter, and it's on Pinterest now. I guess my mom found it on Pinterest the other day. So he was spreading it around.
And he has no shortage of followers.
No.
So that is incredible advertising.
Yeah, by the time, in the 2 or 3 day span where it was really blowing up on his Facebook page, it had like 108,000 likes.
Jesus.
Which was just, I was just beside myself. Just crazy. So at the event, his husband comes out. I'm actually working security for the room we have him set in, so I'm the line leader at the very end of the line before they go in. So his husband Brad comes out and talks to me, and he's asking me about the piece, and I said, well, I used this reference photo of George for this piece, and I said the art style is not my original style or anything, but it was just an idea that I had as an homage to an artist that I really enjoy their work.
Sort of a mashup.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I said, so he comes back out, he tells George that story of how I came up with it or what have you, and he comes back out about 10 minutes later and hands me his business card, their business card, and tells me to get whatever I need to legally in order, because they wanted to buy the licensing for this piece.
Wow.
Right there. This is early in the day, so I've still got the whole rest of the day to not shit myself in excitement over it. I'm sorry if it...
No, that's fine.
So yeah, I'm just I'm trying to just contain myself and not go dancing through the line.
I imagine that would have been difficult to resist that impulse.
Yeah. So a couple weeks went by and we finally got all the contracts signed and negotiated, and it's a piece that he's originally intended. Now I don't know what he's going to end up doing with it, but I've got an agreement with him. It's not a piece that I'll ever sell. He has the exclusive rights to now. But I know at one point he had discussed interest in using that as one of his prints to sell at his table at conventions. So when he signs his signature, that'll be one of the pieces that you can pick out to have him sign.
Wow.
Which is again crazy, because he goes and it covers him going internationally to London Comic-Con or wherever he goes around the world. If he wants to take this piece and use it, then my piece is going to travel with him.
That's incredible.
And I don't know, I still can't wrap my brain around it quite. So now I've been in a mad rush to redo my website and get my portfolio looking nice, and I finally, with some of this money, I'm going to start getting some prints made, so I'm starting to put pre-orders and stuff up on my website.
Fantastic.
So we'll see what happens. Printmaking is expensive, it turns out, for somebody who has no clue what they're doing. But I think I found a good place in town. Another artist friend of mine referred me to, so I'm going to go check them out here soon and hopefully have other prints of other things, but not the George Takei thing. But you can buy that soon from George Takei.
From George himself, yeah. I mean, amazing enough to even be handed a business card that gives you a direct line to George Takei. I mean, that's in and of itself pretty incredible. And then on top of that, to have him say, no, I want to purchased the licensing for this image that you've done of me. I mean, that, I think as a geek, as a worshiper of anything, I think that is sort of the ultimate compliment, that something that you've done in tribute to someone is so appreciated that they actually want to pay you tribute in a way, by licensing it and using it all over the world. It sounds like that's a remarkable story.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, like I said, it was very fast paced and very sudden, and I'm still part of the money I did part of my first payment I did blow on video games that I've been waiting for, but then the rest of it goes back into my art. So
that's one of the perils of being a professional geek.
Yeah,
sometimes
I know.
It's like, now we have money, what are we going to do with it? Video games.
So now I have to find this balance of like, finish your artwork, and then you can play GTA 5.
Sure.
But you have to do art for 2 hours a night.
Yeah.
Before you can. So
no, it's definitely a balance, and I can speak to that as somebody who has been working from home and working for himself for a little over 2 years now. There does come a point where it's like, with the TV's right there. I mean, it's right in my quote-unquote office. Maybe I should just... But you do have to kind of, especially even more so than when you have, 9 to 5 or a desk job, manage your time, because you can get comfortable in the fact that you're doing what you love, and then just kind of let your other passions interfere with that. I totally get that. So what is your background as far as art goes? Did you get into it late? Were you always sort of interested in it?
I was always sort of interested in it. I've been drawing for as long as I could hold a pencil or a crayon or anything. I mean, my parents still had, they saved everything, really. And I was lucky enough to come from a very supportive household as far as whatever you want to do. If you're going to throw yourself into it, make sure you don't half-ass it.
Yeah.
But, whatever you want to do, it's
very important.
You. So it's very nice, because I have several, artist, actor, artsy friends who just have never had that support. So I do feel very fortunate, but I've always been doodling. I took art classes in a little bit in junior high, and then a couple years in high school. I was in the advanced placement class, and I was a student aide for one of the art teachers my senior year, and I did a national advanced placement, the testing where you can basically, if you test high enough, you can get scholarships. Well, I failed that portfolio review. They didn't like what I put together, so I didn't pass that, which was frustrating.
Sure.
Of course,
Absolutely.
Senior in high school, and I've been, at the top of my class thus far, and then I wasn't what they were looking for. I mostly do illustration stuff, so in those kinds of art classes, they're looking for, it seems most of the time they're looking for classical art, portraiture, and something more refined. And I really just have I grew up on Looney Tunes and Batman the Animated Series and Disney films, so I really attached myself to that kind of illustrated, storybook. There's Dr. Seuss. My parents read me Dr. Seuss books when I was really little, and so all of those things really stuck early as influences. And then as I got older, I started getting into more pop art, and I mean, even still, I love vinyl toys and vinyl art and pop art. Especially, we were talking before we hit record about the Mondo posters. I love pretty much everything that they do. And so as I've gotten older, I've still go very much back to the Dr. Seuss illustrations and Chuck Jones and Bruce Timm. All of those are definitely big influences on my art style, and I grew up with comic books and cartoons, and so that really heavily influenced me. And then as I got into pop art, and I more the street art scene. I love, like I said, I love Shepard Fairey. Banksy, of course, is the top of the game when it comes to street art.
Absolutely.
So those guys have in recent years been big influences on what can I do with color and what can I do with high contrast. And I really love to play around with that. I do most of my coloring. I do a lot of hand-drawn art, but then I do digital scans and coloring. So, I mean, I guess that's not really uncommon anymore. That's the industry standard.
More and more artists have embraced a multimedia format.
Yeah.
So,
and every once in a while, I get like an eccentric idea to try, like, I'm gonna draw on newspaper cuttings, and I just then I come back to this. That's not really. I don't know if that's me. I don't know if that's my style, and then I'll just draw, more stick figures doing nonsense until I start then adding stuff to them.
Yeah.
I also, like I said, huge into comics. Batman. I grew up with Batman.
I mean, definitely. I mean, I didn't read a lot of comics as a kid, but I definitely read Batman.
Yeah, I didn't really even start getting into Marvel stuff until I was living on my own. And but Batman. My dad was a big Batman fan. My mom loved like the cartoons and the movies. So I was always around Batman comics.
Sure.
And yeah, so all of those things kind of influenced me early on, and I've kind of just always stuck with it. I mean, I like Andy Warhol stuff. While it's all like, it's everywhere, and if you can go to Hot Topic and get slapped in the face with it. But there's some really interesting pieces, and really more than his artwork. There's a quote from him that has always kind of stuck with me as whenever I'm not sure if what I'm doing, ultimately I don't do anything with the goal to sell it. I just like to make what I like to make.
Sure.
And if other people want it, then great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I'm gonna.
But you have to be satisfied with your own work
exactly.
first.
So there's a quote of Andy Warhol's that he says, "Art is whatever you can convince people it is." Basically, I think I don't know if that's word for word, but it's art is what you convince people it is.
Yeah.
And so for a long time, especially in the post high school, early into college years, it's like, I've got friends I had one friend who sat right next to me for years, who was an amazing like classical artist, and he did. His work looked like stuff you'd see on the Saturday Evening Post. I mean, he was that good,
Gotcha.
and he had such a grasp of realism. And I'm over here doing doodles of, superheroes and nonsense. And so I would, time and again get a little discouraged of like, I'm an illustrator. I'm not really, the artist or whatever. I'll settle for doing storybooks or, illustrations. So for years, go ahead.
Well, that's interesting because, it's one of those things that I've been really fascinated over the last, 10 years, maybe even a little bit longer, about this pendulum swing in the other direction as far as geek properties go. Because it used to be that the things that we really loved were sort of, I won't say underground, but they were sort of the cast-asides. It's like the things that it wasn't cool to really be into. And the pendulum has swung the other way so much that pop art, as you were describing sort of the differences between what people consider classical art and what people consider pop art, is that it's now swung so far the other way that pop art is like, for some people are like, well, that's selling out. It's like, well, wait a minute. This thing that when we were younger, nobody apparently cared about is now so in demand that to do it is to sell. It's such a weird change of
it's really bizarre. Like just, and that, I think that really speaks to just, our society, like the times we live in as a whole. Just like the whole geek chic thing is like real big, more than ever. And I don't think that's any coincidence in comparison to like the comic book movies that have really taken cinema by storm in the past decade.
Sure.
And I think that all like contributes, and of course like the Big Bang Theory, like it's just like, some people hate it, some people love it for what it is. It's like you said, it's interesting to see just what people think is popular, or what we've all really enjoyed for years is now on the upswing, and people are like, I don't mean to, but I get a little hipstery over it. And like, I liked Banksy before anyone knew
Before
what
the
hell that
documentary
was.
came out, yeah, sure.
Before Exit Through the Gift Shop.
Well, I think you're right about. I think the Warhol quote is so apt because it's such a nebulous definition of what art is. I mean, to me, as you look around my house right now, like every one of these Mondo posters. I mean, I even have a poster for The Burning, which is a slasher film most people probably don't give a shit about. But that poster, as bloody as it is a gorgeous work of art.
Oh, yeah.
They're, like, all of the coloring and the line work that went into that, and just the way that they've laid out the different images, like, that is a breathtaking piece of art. But to someone who doesn't care about movies, especially doesn't care about horror movies, they're just like, well, that's a really ghastly poster. And I think that's where the Warhol quote comes in. Is it's like sometimes what is art to one person and what is art to another person is just going to be so completely divergent that you just have to be satisfied in what you're making, because inevitably there's going to be an audience for it. And luckily for you, you're on the side of the fence where there is an enormous audience for it.
Yeah. Well, and that was. I finally, years ago now, really came to terms with the fact that. I stopped weighing so heavily on making a career out of doing art. For years I threw my resume and my portfolio out there and just to everybody and just kept getting, no, you're not quite what we're looking for.
Sure.
No, your graphic design work isn't as strong as we want. No, you're missing this. No, we want you to have 3D experience as well. And I really only do 2D stuff. I really, just like kind of the print and web side of things. And so then finally, after years of rejection on that level, with minor successes here and there, like people I met on Craigslist who, could just pay by project kind of contracts. Never enough money to make that like my career as a whole. I just kind of I took a couple years off of doing really any artwork, and then moved back home, and my dad had passed away several years ago, and I used some money that I had in his passing to open up a comic book store, and because that kind of went back to, I was trying to, I guess, I don't know, in a way it was definitely a tribute to my father and our family when I was growing up, and my love of comic books and that industry, and just kind of taking the other side of, I can just have a business where I get to enjoy the artwork, and I can, do my own graphic design in the store, and I can, paint our walls crazy with whatever, and that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
And then that didn't work out. We closed just shy of our year birthday. And a friend of mine at the time, who was a big supporter of our store, had set us up with a website. When we closed the store, we still had about 9 months left with our domain name and our web hosting and all that, and we had a dead website for a store that no longer existed. And him and I were big webcomic fans, and he said, hey, you've got a lot of weird stories just from the year of owning a comic book shop, and like weird people have come in and all this. So he proposed the idea of starting a webcomic about the store that I owned, so that we could still use the same domain, and we could still use, the almost full year of web hosting we had.
Gotcha.
Don't let it go to waste. So I did for 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years. I did a webcomic called Fortress of Holding, based on my comic and game store by the same name. And then I moved out here. My wife and I moved out here a couple years ago now, and the moving and getting, on our feet in a new place, I ended up stopping the webcomic. And so now I've kind of I've picked back up, and I've kind of gone a new direction with the comic. It's every Wednesday. I do it on my website, and it kind of picks up where I left off with the old comic, but I've redone the art style. I used to do it in color, which was really time consuming, but at the time I didn't have another job. Now I have a full-time job, and I don't have that kind of as much as I would love to do more with it, I don't have that kind of time, but I do have enough time that I do it in black and white now.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of, I used to do like three times a week, I do it just on Wednesdays now. But it kind of, if I don't do any other artwork in a week, that at least keeps me working on at least 3 panels. Yeah, I get a couple hours, if nothing else, a couple hours a week in, although I try to do at least an hour to 2 hours a night drawing something. I throw a ton of paper away. I throw a lot of nonsense away. Which they say you're not really supposed to do. You're supposed to keep like bad sketches, especially, so that you can look back at them later and go, "Oh, okay, I see what I did there."
Yeah, I mean, it's just like that adage about every first draft of everything is shit. I don't know. I think it was Hemingway that said that. But yeah, I completely identify and sympathize with that struggle, because it's not easy to get to a point where you can do what it is that you love for a living. Because oftentimes there aren't a lot of people born with innate desires for actuary tables, or this burning need to work in a cubicle. It's the things that drive us and the things that we're passionate about don't often fall in line with the rigors of having a 9-to-5 job and the soul crushing that can do. Now, I imagine working at a comic and game, or at a game store, is a little less soul crushing given what you're actually interested in.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. At its heart, it's still, it's as much of a retail store as a PacSun or anything like that. I mean, we don't have to listen to the same terrible music, and we get to deal with we have a lot cooler special guests who come in, obviously.
Sure.
So to one degree, it is very much like any other retail job. On the other degree, it's not, because it is something that I enjoy. And I started at Dragon's Lair, so kind of going back to what I said. So after a while, I just gave up on really trying my hardest to get into an art profession. And I just decided that I was just going to find anything that would pay steady, just a day job, and then work on my artwork as I wanted to.
Yeah.
So that's really, we moved out here and we were both looking for work immediately. And since I had owned a comic store and I knew the management side of things from that, of the accounts and all the ordering and all that, I went ahead and put my resume together and brought it to Dragon's Lair. When we first moved out here, they called me a month or two later. And I started just as a regular clerk, just working the night shift, closing, all that. And then within a couple months, a management position opened, and I became the store manager. And I did that for about a year, until last February last year, where we knew we were moving into the location we're at now, and our events were getting bigger and bigger, and our overall presence in the community was getting bigger. And one day a week I would put aside my managerial tasks to just put like some flyers and posters and signage together for the store. And our general manager, she took me aside and said, "Hey, we want to transition you into just a full-time, like, in-house graphic design position, and you'd be in charge of also like our website and our social media, and then add all of our posters and flyers and all that." And so of course I took it, and so that's what I've been doing since February now. So by just kind of putting on the back burner the focus and the need to I've got to find that art job. I just took a job that I enjoyed, and now, just because I've enjoyed my work and they've noticed that I can do this and this, that it's moved into, now I have that art job that I struggled for so long to find.
Sure.
And it still allows me to work on my own projects when I get home. So I've kind of found that level ground for now, which is nice. So I don't go home completely frustrated with what I'm working on. I still got to work on design stuff at work. I got to do more of the infographics and kind of work on that side of like a commercial portfolio.
Well, I mean,
and then I got to go home, and work on.
It's kind of the best of both worlds, because I mean, you are working within a retail environment, but first of all, it's a place that Dragon's Lair in Austin is such a staple of, the geek community. Like it is the go-to place for games and for, all kinds of fantasy paraphernalia. And, I mean, that's huge in this town. And then from within that, to be able to develop and utilize your passion for art as your actual profession, even within a retail environment, is really impressive. Because that's not something you could do, like, working at Best Buy.
No, no, definitely not. And I feel, I have been very fortunate. And I feel very fortunate in that respect that I don't know, through happenstance or through a quality of my work that I don't necessarily recognize, or something.
Oh, it's definitely quality.
I've been awarded some opportunities that are just kind of, it's nice because it's kind of fallen into place in certain ways. Not to say that I just am sitting back and letting things happen as they do. I've still got, deadlines and goals that I meet and sometimes don't meet. But it's nice that I'm in a place now where I enjoy my job enough that I'm not looking for the next thing. And I can still work on my stuff, and then the events like the George Takei thing happen where all of a sudden people are stealing posters out of bathrooms and people are taking pictures of the one that we have in the hallway and asking about it, and I've gotten a few more people coming to me for like logo design work and stuff, which is nice. I'm starting to get a little bit of traction and recognition, which is kind of daunting because I don't know what to do with it.
Sure.
I'm kind of spinning in place, trying to make sure I keep up with who are, I guess, potentially new clients now, away from work. So now it kind of feels like I've added a part-time job onto
your full-time job.
Already full-time job. So.
Well, I wanted to talk to you. So you've talked a little bit about, doing the webcomic. I was looking through your portfolio earlier, which is staggering. And I noticed that you have a lot of panels, a lot of actual comic book panels in there. As far as, if you were to have your druthers going forward, would you rather design posters or would you rather draw comic books? Or to you, is it all kind of just one?
I mean, to a degree, it's as long as I get to work on anything, I'm pretty content.
Sure.
I'd started a comic project a while back, loosely based on like if me and if people I knew were superheroes, how do we react to those kind of situations that we see in those superhero movies, but with the personalities of just a bunch of jackasses, really. I mean, honestly, it's like a bunch of Tony Starks and Deadpools running around,
sure,
not knowing really how much chaos they're, causing around them, but trying to do, something good with it.
So the great power without the great responsibility.
Right. Or the great responsibility without acknowledging that it's not that much responsibility, but it is. But they don't quite grasp the level of responsibility. It's not like cleaning your dishes after dinner. Right. It's like don't cause property damage.
Don't knock buildings down.
So I started that, and it's just so daunting.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. I like doing poster work and like especially my favorite format is 11x17s. I think that's such a clean. Mm-hmm. It's a nice size. It's for some reason impossible to frame right.
Yeah.
Because I can't ever find a frame for it anywhere. But it's the size I always buy when I go to conventions.
I'll have to put you in touch with our frame guy because we have that problem because Mondo does not always conform to standard sizes. So we actually had to figure out a different solution. So
okay, all right, we'll
definitely talk about that. But have you ever thought about approaching Mondo or talking to them about the possibility of working together?
Honestly, only very recently with the George Takei thing exploding have I really thought of myself of turning it up to 11.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a great foot in the door.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I've always, up until now, I've been kind of just content, like, oh yeah, I do this in my spare time. If you know a guy who, wants something done for a tattoo, I can draw something up or whatever. So I guess I've just kind of had the little league mindset, and now all of a sudden this is kind of like, oh, maybe I am ready for like the big leagues or whatever, whatever that entails.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 108,000 likes on Facebook on George Takei's page. That kind of like, I'm still reeling over that, and now that's to the point where I'm like, oh, I gotta make prints, and I gotta not let this go to waste, and I gotta start getting my name out there. Since he's really propelled me in that direction, I've got to keep up with that momentum. So honestly, up until now, I sit back and go, it would be really cool to work with those guys and to be like a part of that team.
Yeah. But
I don't know where to start. Like I don't, and I'm not to the level of those guys or what those guys are putting out.
If I had to, besides the Takei image, if I could speak from personal preference of the things that I've seen of yours, I think that series that you did of the Disney villains, the mugshots, would be such an easy thing to market. I mean, even if you had to get around the mouse a little bit by maybe doing other movie villains besides the Disney ones, that is such a great idea for a series, and I think that is something that people would absolutely, just massively consume.
Well, thank you. That's one of the ones I'm working on doing prints of. I did those as just black and white line drawings for an art show I did a year ago. And so now because of all this, those were the first ones I thought of. Mm-hmm. So I'm going back and I'm doing color work on them, and it's a set of 5 right now, and I'm thinking of maybe adding more to it, but I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. I've got enough stuff. I've got enough half-finished projects that if I just go back and finish them, I'll have like a decent amount of prints to sell. So it's just a matter of kicking my own ass and getting my stuff together.
Yeah.
I've also got that series of 5 Disney villains, mugshots, and there's this is the only time I've said the names of them out loud because these are resemblances to
parodies of
Jafar, Scar, Ursula, Maleficent, and Cruella.
Yeah, the Maleficent one is I love the way that you drew her, and just I think the idea of doing them as mugshots is such a great idea. Even if you might have to find other companies, rogues gallery who aren't quite as litigious as Disney,
right?
But yeah,
cool. Yeah, and that's always kind of in the back of my mind too. Is what can I get away with for a little while, or what can I do until I'm told to stop doing it? What can I change so that I'm protected by parody law? I mean, how much of something do I need to change in order for it not to be a ripoff?
Yeah.
And so that's like in the pieces I don't name the characters. That's like really the only time I've named them out loud. It was just then on a recording, which is probably not.
Yeah, we may have to redact that, but that's okay.
So I've got those, and then I've got a series of I have a series of 3 Wizard of Oz portraits of the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Lion, and kind of like a storybook portrait, kind of a little bit Sailor Jerry-esque, a little bit. I don't know how to describe it. I mean, it doesn't stray too much from whatever my art style is, but I tried to do a few more realistic flourishes with it here and there, with like shading and like things I don't normally take time to do in my pencil work, because I'll normally just like go back and add it in color digitally, and I love digital coloring and all that, and it's kind of I let it become my crutch to a certain degree, because I'm like, I'll just do that after I scan it. I'll just do the line work now and I'll do the rest later, which is why I have 13,000 unfinished projects because I just haven't gotten them scanned or for whatever reason.
It's easier, and yet they're all unfinished.
Yeah, exactly. It is easier if you just don't ever finish a project, I guess. So I've got those, and I've got those are really the only two things that I've got like a series, I guess, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm. So what has been the weirdest interaction you've had with a customer at the comic book store that ended up being one of your webcomics? Or maybe one of your favorites?
Jeez. Early on in the first run of my webcomics, it's been not really a single interaction, but in the old comics, I had a kid who would show up in the background of panels, and he was basically in the comic strip he's a snake. He's just a snake wearing like a 10-year-old boy's clothes.
Okay.
So he's wearing shorts, and he's wearing shoes and a t-shirt, but he's got like almost, I guess, Earthworm Jim like, where he's just got that snake head coming out of the collar, and we called that character Snake Boy. There was a kid who used to come in and play Yu-Gi-Oh! In my old store that I used to own back in New Mexico, and he was this lengthy little kid. He had to have been like 10 years old. He was like 4 feet tall, but he was just like the thinnest kid. And the way he moved, he just slithered around the store. Like he would just like, he never stopped moving, and he was always kind of this like
Davy Jones
motion.
during an earthquake.
Yeah. Or watching Axl Rose during like November Rain as he's dancing like that. This is just how the kid moved. And so we would give these kids code names so that we could talk about them later or across the store, and not, we thought we were being subtle. It probably wasn't, but kids don't know any better, so so F them. So yeah, we called this kid Snake Boy, and every time, and he was obnoxious as shit, and we just didn't like this kid. We didn't like most of the kids who played Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know if it's like the kids who played Pokemon were fine, and the kids who...
it's like the Coke Pepsi thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I don't know what the disconnect there was between Yu-Gi-Oh! And then normal people. But
how one card game makes you better socially adjusted than another.
Yeah. Which is just splitting hairs at a certain point anyway. I'm kidding, because I've referenced the place I work now. I'm kidding. No, so we used to call this kid Snake Boy, and then one of the first like 3 issues that because I used to put it out 3 times a week, so we would do like a full, like a 3-story chapter in 1 week. So like the first 3 issues were about Yu-Gi-Oh! Day, which was every Saturday in our store. And so they would their parents would drop them off right as soon as we opened the doors, and pretty much until like 7 or 8 p.m. we were open at 10 a.m. So from 10 until like 6 or 7, these kids were here all day, being loud and being rowdy, and it wasn't a huge store that we had, and just like running amok. And so Snake Boy was one of we had 3 kids who stuck out as like the worst. They were going to grow up into the worst adults you've ever seen, and you just knew.
Yeah.
And so I'll just their code names, or how we knew them, were Snake Boy, and he just slithered around. There was a kid called Penguin, and the other kids called him that too for some reason. So we just took to calling him that because we didn't know the kid's real name, and he was definitely not all there. Mm-hmm. And it was real sad because it's like his parents didn't like take the time to...
No, they just dumped him in a comic book store.
Yeah, they just leave him, he's at school all week, and then on the weekends we'll just dump him off at the comic shop and not have to deal with our own kid and, the needs that we're not fulfilling for him.
Sure.
So he was irritating, but at the same time he was just kind of a tragic situation, and so we just tried to like lay off as much as we could until it got out of hand. So there was Snake Boy and Penguin, and then Piss Boy, who was this...
It's like the worst Batman villains ever.
Yeah, this is the Batman 66. If they had gone on to a 3rd season and Vincent Price couldn't come to play Egghead, you'd have Piss Boy and Piss Boy and Snake Boy, and they would double team ruining comic and toy
I have a
stores.
feeling that Charles Nelson Riley would have played one of them. I'm not sure which, but I'm pretty sure one of them would have been
probably
Charles
Piss Boy.
Piss Boy.
So yeah, and we called Piss Boy that because one day he used our restroom, and I don't know how.
Wasn't terribly concerned with accuracy.
It's like he didn't turn on the light and then just dropped trow and spun around like a piss tornado in our bathroom, and I had to clean it up. And then as of that moment when I finished cleaning it, I then put up a sign that said no public restroom, and I made those kids walk across a busy street to go use the bathroom at the mall.
It is the principle of the thing?
Yeah, exactly. So, so Piss Boy was the third terrible. These are our future leaders. Piss Boy for president.
I believe that children
2021
are the future, and that the future needs to be eradicated. So please send the T100s as soon as possible.
It won't. The end is not nigh enough, it seems.
So, I mean, bringing this around full circle, is George Takei as magnificent in person as we all assume that he is?
Oh yeah, he's like just a sweetheart of a guy. He's just so nice. For the event, we said he was going to be there from 4 to 6, and he ended up sticking around until about 9:30.
Wow, just because people wanted to...
Yeah,
wow.
We asked him if he wanted to cap the line. We had people stretched all the way down to the Hop Dotty at the end of our complex and back up. Between 600 and 700 people came out that day to meet George Takei, and we asked him at some point, the line is going this far, do you want us to put a cap on the line? He said, no, I'm going to meet every single person who is here to meet me. And he stuck around till 9:30 and met every single person in that line. And he was just super nice and terrific. And this whole process of working with him and his people on getting the contracts done over this artwork, it's just been quite the experience.
Yeah.
A big honor and just really easy. They've made the experience really easy. He really wanted this artwork from me. So it was real nice, and he's just I can't say enough good things about him.
And I mean, at the risk of making a terrible pun, but that is my want here on this website. It sounds like Mr. Sulu has put your career into warp drive.
Yeah,
because I mean,
definitely
108,000 likes. That's just like, I think if you put together everything I've ever posted on Facebook, and I'm including things that I've posted for websites and for myself, I'm not sure you would get that number. So
no, I've never. I didn't know likes went up that high. I thought
at a certain point they would just stop.
Yeah, I thought they capped off somewhere.
Like the score on Galaga eventually.
Yeah,
eventually,
freezes.
Yeah. You just get to the kill screen.
Yeah.
Why doesn't Facebook have a kill screen? This is a travesty. We need to work on this. But tell us, before we go, I want to give you a chance to tell us, where we can find you online, where people who are interested in maybe commissioning you for something could reach you.
Okay, so my website is Zach Industries, but it's xaq-industries.com. That was kind of just a douchebag way of spelling Zach from a long time ago when I worked at a Hot Topic and you were required to do weird shit like that. So I kept that spelling because I watched
you take a moment and try to figure out if it was better to admit that or just let it lie. And I love you were just like, well, I'm going to be honest.
Just like put it all out there. Why do you spell it that way? That's a weird way to spell that.
Part of it's actually, I think it's better that you said it was from Hot Topic than be like, well, in Scientology, with my thetan level, I am technically...
When I used to wear eyeliner, I was required to spell my name this way.
I believe it's called guy liner in your case.
Okay. So xaq-industries.com is my website. I've revamped my Fortress of Holding webcomic. It shows up at the very top of that website every Wednesday. I do a blog with every issue, some pertaining to what the issue is about. These last couple ones have been more about me barely getting the issue up because I'm too busy playing Grand Theft Auto 5.
Damn you, Grand Theft Auto 5.
Damn you, Trevor. I can't take enough psycho selfies with Trevor. Kill a hooker, take a selfie. That's how I've been playing that game.
Yeah. Oh, it's a game.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
well, also,
I just thought-
Yeah. Also, that's how I've been playing the game.
the
Game of life. Oh, marvelous. So that website has my contact information. My email is negativezach@gmail.com. All one word. That's also my Xbox handle, negativezach.
In case anyone wants to take psycho
Yeah,
selfies with you.
yeah, or heaven forbid, there's an 11-year-old who hasn't yet teabagged me in Halo. Now they'll get their chance.
That is the dream.
I'm going to have all of the teabagging of the internet.
We can only hope. I mean, we'll obviously, even as I'm saying this, it'll be, we'll have it on the screen. If you're listening to this on YouTube, you should be able to see it there in front of you. If you're visiting our website, OneOfUs.net, you'll see it there in the post itself. But Zach, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on the show. And
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and talking with us. Austin is a place that more so than a lot of cities in America has the potential to reward talent. The talent obviously has to be there, which you obviously have been blessed with. But I think this is a city where things just kind of come together in the right way, and the planets align just right, that talented people are recognized more than any place I know that I've ever lived. And it's so great to meet somebody else who, had a passion and decided that they were going to go for it. And I'm so pleased to see good things happening for you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. And anytime you want to come back and make stupid jokes, let me know. And
no, absolutely.
I'm always around for general jackassery as well.
Well, I'm definitely going to hit you up for a mugshot of Darkness from Legend, because I just,
perfect. There we go. And also, so I'm also on Facebook too. XAQ Industries on Facebook as well.
Hottest hot topic at Facebook.com.
Yeah. The hottest topic. Skinny jeans. Zach at skinnyjeans.terrible.
The worst. Well, this has been Brian Salisbury and Zach Martin on OneOfUs.SHOW. I want to remind you guys that you can find this along with all of our other content on iTunes. Just search One of Us in the podcast section. If you're listening to this on YouTube, please do consider going to the website OneOfUs.net. We've got the archive of this show as well as a lot of other great content. If you're listening to this on the site, please consider going to YouTube, because the same applies there. But for now, I just want to leave you with the fact that Tex Avery and Rodan, in my mind, are exactly the same person. Discuss.